Good evening, Professor Hamilton. Tonight, I will be giving you a lecture or teaching you about the U.S. Constitution. My name is Professor Thomas, and let me teach you on how the Constitution affects me and you as U.S. citizens. One may ask, what is the Constitution? Well, the U.S. Constitution is a law of the United States ensuring that every single one of its citizens has protection over their rights. The U.S. Constitution consists of a preamble, which is an introduction of the highest law of the United States. The preamble lays a foundation for the Constitution. It is in place to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves. Another thing that the U.S. Constitution has in place is the 7 Articles. The first 3 Articles divide the government into 3 branches: the executive, the judicial, and the legislative. The 4th article describes the relationship between the states and the federal government. The 5th establishes the amendment process. The 6th covers deaths, oaths, supremacy, and religious texts. Lastly, the 7th article covers ratification of the Constitution and declares that the Constitution becomes the official law of the land when ratified by 9 states. And that is from Article 7 itself. This brings us to the branches of government. The first branch being the executive branch, which consists of the president, the vice president, and the federal judiciary. The president can sign or veto bills and also is our national representation to foreign countries. Second, we have the judicial branch. The judicial branch consists of the Supreme Court and lower courts. The responsibility of the judicial branch is the interpretation of our state laws and administers justice throughout our entire legal system. Last but not least, we have the legislative branch. The legislative branch consists of Congress, which is the House of Representatives. Their responsibility is to declare war, regulate interstate and foreign commerce. They also control taxing and spending policies. This brings us to the power of the states. The states of the U.S. are required to give full faith and credit to the laws, records, contracts, and judicial proceedings of the other states. The 10th Amendment states the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. This concept creates a balance of power and allows the state to have dominion over the areas that are not directly addressed by the federal government. This takes us to the Supremacy Clause. The Supremacy Clause was a response to the problems with the Articles of Confederation, which governed the United States from 1781 to 1789. The Articles conspicuously lacked any similar provision declaring federal law to be superior to state law. The Supremacy Clause proclaimed that the Constitution, laws passed by Congress, and the treaties made by the federal government were the supreme law of the land. In the event of a conflict between the states and the national government would triumph over it. Leaving the topic of the Supremacy Clause, this brings us to the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights consists of the first 10 amendments. The Bill of Rights were introduced by James Madison in 1789 and ratified on December 15th, 1791. The reason these amendments were created was to protect the rights that the citizens believed were their God-given rights. Also, it was a response to charges by anti-federalists. Anti-federalists feared the Constitution because they thought it would give the government too much power and provided no protection for their rights. Now, the First Amendment ensures that we as U.S. citizens can express ourselves and practice religion freely. It also allows us to criticize the government without any repercussions. The Second Amendment gives the citizens the right to defend themselves against a violent attack. The Third Amendment protects our rights to privacy and of our property. The Fourth Amendment ensures that the government respects our personal privacy and due process. The Fifth Amendment ensures fair treatment in the legal system and protects the citizens from abuse of governmental power. The Sixth Amendment ensures that a fair trial and the right to have legal representation to avoid individuals having an unjust prosecution. The Seventh Amendment protects the rights for citizens to have a jury trial in federal courts with any civil cases where the claim exceeds a certain dollar value. And that information comes from Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. The Eighth Amendment restricts the government from treating the individuals cruelly or inhumanely. The Ninth Amendment affirms that citizens have rights beyond the amendments that should be respected. Lastly, the 10th Amendment makes clear that any powers that are not significantly given to the federal government nor withheld from the states are reserved to those respective states. And that information comes from Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Lastly, we have the ratification. Ratification of the U.S. Constitution was a critical process that transformed the proposed framework of government into a supreme law of the land. It is approving or the enhancement of a legal binding act that would not otherwise be binding in the absence of such approval, and that comes from Law Cornell. This means when the state governments voted to approve the Constitution, it officially became the law. It began when farmers established special ratifying conventions in each state instead of going through state legislators. They did this because they believed that the state legislators would be reluctant and give the power to the national government. But on August 31st, 1787, delegates also decided that 9 states would need to ratify the Constitution and implement it. This has been Professor Thomas. I hope you enjoyed my class session about the U.S. Constitution, and I hope you learned something from it and decide to pursue and learn more information about this. Thank you so much.